not be able to say which city is this, but it is New South Wales. Such is the case with this as well as this. The point is that the impact is the same, more or less the same in all cities, regardless of the level of building. Urban flood is a complex problem. Hence, there are no easy solutions or quick fix solutions. The other thing is that there are no spot specific solutions as far as urban flood is concerned. You can have a spot specific solution for earthquakes. You can make a settlement earthquake resilient, even a single building earthquake resilient. You can make a settlement resilient against landslides, but it is not possible. Either you have a comprehensive, complete solution, or you don't have any solution. If we look at the problem and give part solutions, we will be only transferring the problem from one part of the city to the other, from one ward to the other, or from one zone to the other. We must also understand that this problem has slowly creeped in over a period of 50 years or 100 years. So again, short-term solutions will not solve the problem. Urban flood is no longer a black swan event, a rare event. It has become a regular event. This has become the new normal. Cities like Chennai, Bangalore, or Bombay, getting flooded has become our new normal. In the beginning, we were talking about flood control. We spoke about structural measures, dams, levees. Then we understood that flood control is not possible. We started talking about flood management. Then we failed in that. Then we started talking about making way for water. But we didn't make way for water. Now we are suffering, and now we are saying that we have to live with it. That is the new reality. We have to accept that we have to live with urban floods. There is no single cause. In many of the panel discussions, I said, some NGOs, some advocacy groups, or somebody who has got a solution. They say that they will isolate a single cause and say this is the main cause of the problem. Very recently, I was sitting in a panel discussion when an advocacy NGO was also there. That person said the corruption is the main cause of urban floods. I said, what is the reason for urban floods in Paris? Are you sure that it is corruption? He had no answer. So this reductionistic approach of attributing a single cause and trying to solve it will not solve the problem of urban floods. These cities have developed before we understood hazards, risks, and vulnerabilities. Some of the cities are 200 years old. Chennai is nearly 300 years old. Delhi is older than that. And some of the cities in Europe are 700, 800 years old. So these cities developed before we understood the risks in these cities. And then climate change impacts, all of us know about. But I will not attribute all urban flood to changing climate. That will be an escapism. Some of the urban floods are due to commissions and omissions committed by all the stakeholders, including government. And again, added to that is coastal flooding, tsunami, sea level rise due to global warming. Then one of the main causes is rapid urbanization, unplanned urbanization, and urbanization without risk-informed planning. Then higher levels of rainfall in a shorter period of time. One of the reasons is urban heat island effect. Construction either legally permitted by government or encroachments on the floodplains, on the inlets, outlets, sometimes even on the water bodies, on wetlands. In India, except a few states, many of the states do not have a floodplain zoning act or proper buffer zone regulations. Then inadequacy of drains, either natural or constructed drains in many places. This photograph will tell you. Then choking of our stormwater drains by throwing anything and everything into the drains, to the waterways, debris, plastic, garbage, and even construction debris. Poor reservoir management is one of the reasons for urban floods. Cities in the downstream are flooded. We have classic examples from Surat flood in 2006 or Kerala floods in 2018. Sudden release of water in the last minute. People in charge of reservoir management, they are always in a dilemma. If we release water in advance and if there is no adequate inlet, what will we do during summer? We will face a drought situation. So this release or not to release dilemma always ends up in not releasing water till a crisis situation occurs. The last minute, water is released, and then downstream villages and towns and cities are affected. Then increase in runoff due to non-permeable pavements and surfaces. Unfortunately, in India, smart city program has been misunderstood as paving the city program. Cities are fully paved, 80-90% of the city, including paths are paved. So the runoff is nearly 95% in some cities. And then raising of the road levels without properly milling the roads. So relaying the roads without milling increases the level of the roads and thus it affects the flow into the drains. Then within the city, in the settlements, again, without milling, the roads are relayed again and again. So the houses are actually now 1 or 2 feet below the road level, and these houses get flooded. Then lack of planned permanent pumping facilities in low-lying areas. Pumping is the only option, but no permanent pumping facilities available. And this is again a problem, that is mixing of sewage and stormwater flows in a majority of the sewer and drain networks. Not only it affects people during the flood situation, then you have this post-flood epidemic-like situation due to this. And closed drains prohibit regular monitoring or cleaning, particularly the cut and cover solutions. Sometimes it may be cover and cut solutions. This is again something which do not allow us to monitor and clean. And the distance between the manholes, wherever it is more than 5 meters, cleaning becomes difficult. Now you cannot send laborers to clean. Only machines have to be used, equipment has to be used. If the distance is more, I've seen in some places where manholes are at a distance of 10 meters, then it is not really possible. Third is the size of the manhole. Very small manhole size in the old cities do not permit equipments village inside for cleaning the drains. In fractured construction of drains and inadequate disposal points. In the old cities, due to poor maintenance, most of the drains are in dilapidated state. Rainwater harvesting facilities. In some cities, people were mandated to undertake rainwater harvesting facilities, but most of them are now dysfunctional because there was no proper follow-up, there was no inspection or audit after that, and there is no post-construction service facility available. Then specification and standards of the inlets and outlets are not, and different agencies in government have different specifications, and these are not compatible with each other. Then several technical flaws, like maintaining the slope, the angle of placement of the inlets. In many places, you find it, kept at exactly perpendicular to the road. That doesn't serve the purpose, and poor road constructions. One of the most important factors for urban flood is not using catchment as the basis for planning. For administrative convenience, we use wards or zones as the basis for planning drains. Then weak enforcement of regulations. In many places, there is no enforcement. If at all there is an enforcement, in many places there is no regulation. If at all there is a regulation, it is not implemented. This also you find. In some cities, I have seen that, one side of, there is a median in between, one side of the road is completely flooded, the other side of the road is open for vehicular traffic because there is no cross drainage arrangement. Then destruction of green environment, cutting of trees, results in loose soil, which increases the speed of the flow, and poor solid waste management. And this is again a very important factor. In a big city like Chennai, Bangalore, any other big city, there are more than a dozen agencies working there, and all of them are concerned in some way or the other with urban flooding. But they all work in silos. One department does not know what the other department is doing, and no one knows what all these departments are collectively doing. So that is again a problem. So now we have to talk about mitigation measures. What can be done? First is stop accumulating new risks. Before we start talking about risk reduction, we should be very clear that we should stop accumulating new risks. The second is reduce existing risk. As far as I am concerned, there are three basic core principles. One is reduce runoff. The other is stagger release. The third is increase them. Reduce runoff. All the water that drains should not flow into the streets and drains. Second is, if it has to flow, then stagger the release into the drains. The third is, if it has to flow through the drains, then ensure that the flow is faster. Then second is drainage master plan for the city and development area. In many cities, there is no drainage master plan. As and when the city develops, some ad hoc arrangement is given, some no objection certificate is obtained from the water resources department, and construction area comes up there. The third is city development based on the drainage master plan. All the three principles are very, very important. Then we should go for integrated drainage system. Then catchment should become the basic unit of design, not administrative ward or zones. Then remove obstructions to the flow of water. Regular cleaning of drains, not only pre-monsoon cleaning and desilting, it should be a regular activity. And increase the adequacy of the inlets. Create bigger size culverts. This we find in big cities. See, all the utility lines go through these culverts only, and they occupy so much of space and the flow is obstructed. Our committee which studied this problem in great detail in Chennai, we have a 14-member expert committee which studied this problem, and Professor Kapil Gupta is also a member of the committee. Our committee suggested to the government that at least increase the size of the culverts 30%. Then maintain the existing level of the roads, which is important. And when in the medians, create rectangular or round openings so that there will be cross drainage facility. This is a photograph from Japan. You can see that they have provided such facilities. Then rainwater harvesting is important. Groundwater recharge is important. And creation of retention ponds, both temporary as well as permanent retention pond is necessary. In many Western countries, roads are used as temporary retaining structures, but we can't do it in India. So we have to necessarily create retaining structures, avoid unnecessary. We talk about, we are so proud when we say that we are sons of the soil in our city, we don't find any soil, only a lot of sons are found. So we have to come out of this tendency of indiscriminately paving the city. And if it has to be paved some area, then go for permeable pavements. And create rain gardens and playgrounds in schools, in public places. Parks can be used as temporary holding ponds. Photograph from Japan. In Japan, they use tennis courts and playgrounds very effectively as ponds. And this underground holding pond in Tokyo is very famous, but it's very costly. So we have to think twice before going for such solutions. This concept of sponge city in China, which was applauded very well, did not do very well in the 2023 floods. So we have to again look at what went wrong, what went right, and we have to learn lessons. And widen the drainage and follow the guidelines given by National Disaster Management Authority with regard to runoff. NDMA guidelines specify the runoff in big cities a runoff coefficient of up to 0.95. And installing sensor-based automatic pumping stations in the low-lying areas and removing encroachments and bottlenecks, particularly in the inlets, outlets, and of course, pre-monsoon desilting of the drains. And again, designing of the drains is also very important. Usually the drains are designed as flat bottom drains, but that doesn't lead to automatic desilting. A lot of siltation accumulates. So it can be a V-shaped drain in the bottom. Then automatic desilting can take place. We have to look at that. And then solid waste management and look at circular economy and reuse. Then installation of automatic weather stations. NDMA guidelines recommend installation of one automatic weather station per 4 square kilometer area in the city. I think it's a very useful suggestion. Then in some cities like Chennai, we need more Doppler weather radars, particularly X-band radars in urban areas. As far as a techno-legal regime is concerned, the same specifications and standards should be followed by all the agencies. If Highways Department has a different specification and Municipal Corporation has a different specification, there is a problem. The other thing is, these higher standards and specifications should be used in the neighboring villages and municipal corporations and satellite towns. Because as the city expands, these villages and towns become part of the main city. So if they have different specifications, then there is a problem of compatibility. Then reservoir management should improve. One is we have to learn to manage inflow and outflow. We should be able to calculate the inflow based on model from IMD forecast, how much will be the inflow. Based on that, advanced release of water should be undertaken. The committee recommended that empty the water bodies at least 1 meter before the rains based on the forecast. At least 1 meter based on you can empty. Then community preparedness is important in the city's resident welfare associations have to play an important role. And we need trained volunteers for early warning, search and rescue. And we have to undertake massive IEC campaign. The first and foremost thing is for risk-informed planning. First and foremost thing is to have a hazard risk vulnerability analysis. Then the other is based on the hazard risk vulnerability analysis, we have to prioritize the interventions. I think the Pareto's principle applies for risk also. The 80-20 principle. 80% of the risk is concentrated in 20% of places. So if we can rightly identify the 20% of the places, and if we can take appropriate interventions, we can save 80% of the risk. Then we have to decide our return period. We have been designing for a 100-year return period. Now, should we stick to that 100-year return period or should we increase it? For example, in Netherlands, they are planning for a 1 in 1,000 year flood. Earlier, the standard was 1 in 10,000 year flood. They have raised the bar, it is 1 in 100,000 year flood. Then risk transfer insurance, buyout programs and creation of open spaces. Wherever there are constructions which have to be absolutely removed, constructions on the floodplains, then we should launch a buyout program and create open spaces in those areas. At least, this is a very simple thing. Municipal corporations can do it. Mark the high flood level in a flood-prone city. It will have multiple benefits. Awareness of people will increase, and it will automatically bring real estate prices down. There will be a big change in the real estate market. Perhaps that is why they are not doing it. Then, in housing projects, it should be made mandatory that the disaster risk is printed there and the buyers are informed. Then, we all know that solution for drought as well as flood is only a single solution, that is increasing the storage capacity, creating holding ponds, rainwater harvesting and groundwater recharge. Creating additional storage space in the upper catchment areas is an absolute must. Restore water bodies wherever it is possible. I will not say restore all the water bodies. It is not practically possible. Undertake massive plantation of trees. And then wherever there is no floodplain zoning act or buffer zone regulations, we need to introduce them. And when we force people for rainwater harvesting, we should ensure that some agencies are empaneled for regular service, periodic inspection should be undertaken, and technical help should be provided to the people to repair these things. And we have to undertake a review of the existing building bylaws, and we need to take a multi-hazard approach. And then I said earlier that there is absolutely no coordination among the various agencies in the urban areas. So there is need for a higher level body chaired by either the chief secretary or the chief minister to monitor the projects and programs and mitigation measures within the city. And preparation of a comprehensive disaster management plan for the city, spelling out prevention, mitigation, response, and post-disaster recovery measures is also essential. Of course, I said that IEC is very important. I will not repeat. We need to create a trained cadre of volunteers. Whenever there is a disaster, there is a lot of spontaneous volunteers. But these untrained volunteers are more of a distraction and problem rather than help. So we need trained, accredited, certified, and equipped volunteers. And Meteor data, which is available to the airports every 30 minutes, should be made public and action should be taken based on that. Airports should be declared and considered as absolutely critical infrastructure. We see that most of the time airports are also flooded. So rescue forces are not able to arrive and relief materials are not received due to airports getting flooded. So airports should be made flood proof by providing efficient drainage of for a much higher rainfall intensity. This is again very important. So what is the way forward? First, we have to define our acceptable risk. If you don't define it, for example, in Chennai, even if there is 1 feet of inundation, people say that we are suffering from huge floods. So we should tell what is the level of acceptable risk, for which level we are designing the city. Second is living with floods. Yes, I spoke about it. Then there are no quick fix solutions, and implement the short-term measures first. Nature-based solutions and blue-green infrastructure are long-term measures and people will not wait. So some short-term measures should be implemented and also plan and execute long-term measures. It is not that long-term measures will follow short-term measures. They should both start simultaneously and long-term measures will take some more time for completion. That is the difference. And enforce the regulations to prevent the creation of new risks. Create a mechanism for coordination among the various agencies. And when we are executing flood mitigation projects, we should always follow tail to head approach. Many places, because land is available in the head portion, we start our work there, it adds to the problem. So we should have a tail to head approach, and flood mitigation projects should be conceived and planned and designed as a single project. There may be several agencies implementing it, but the conception of it, planning of it, designing of it should be done as a single project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Our next presenter would be joining us online. We have with us Professor Vilas Nithivatnan, Professor, Department of Development and Sustainability, Asian Institute of Technology, Bangkok. He has an academic background in engineering, economics, and systems management with a PhD degree from University of Pittsburgh, USA. He has worked for both academic and private sectors, as well as non-profit organizations. His areas of specialization and research interest include systems approach and management, urban competitiveness and resilience, climate change and urbanization, waste recycling and circular economy, strategic and sustainable infrastructure development, sustainable tourism, and regional development. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope I am audible. Yes. I'm audible now?
Yes, sir, audible. You
Okay.
can go on.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I am with you in the conference room at the moment, but I could not make it for some unexpected reason. Anyway, I'm pleased to share with you presenting this session online. So let me go ahead with sharing my slide on the screen. Okay, I hope my slide is showing on the screen now. Yeah, I would like to share within this topic integrated flood risk management for enhancing urban resilience. Basically, we perhaps are going to focus on some particular measure of the flood management, but we also need to look into a bit broader integrated flood management. And I like to focus on some specific case. And the motivation to also link into the urban resilience, which I think is a good framework for what we are trying to do in terms of improving the flood risk management. So this is the outline. I'm going to quickly cover the first two topics in terms of the urban risk and resilience, get into both concept and kind of the issue challenge regarding integrated flood risk management, and spend more time on the cases and end up with my offer of the way forward. Before going to the topic, a quick background based on this slide. I believe we are all familiar with this concept of the risk factor, namely including not only just the hazards, but also the exposure and vulnerability. In particularly on the urban context, urban risk, I think we perhaps need to be more concerned on this different risk factor. And also shown by this map, even not really updated, but this map representing partly urbanization. We can see a number of, in fact, growing, but big city, mega cities, sometimes we call. In fact, many in India, I believe also including Bangalore, also in China and many other countries. At the same time, this map includes multiple hazards. Flood is also part of this, but we are not concerned only the flood. That's why we perhaps need to look into a bit broader from starting point here. And to remind, the flood risk, for example, is not only one type of the flood. We have a pluvial flood, and sometimes even the coastal flooding. So that result into what we call multiple hazards and a number of risk factors as shown on this diagram. So the motivation that I like to cover is about the urban resilience, basically starting from the previous slide, because we face multiple hazards, for example. And at the same time, we also need to look at, like I mentioned here, ability of the urban system, not only just a specific component or specific area, rather than the whole system of the urban area. And at the same time, like clearly shown here, we may have different options regarding the adaptation and enhancing urban resilience from very simple, maybe mostly very physical, if we're facing on the flooding, but this diagram in fact can cover other types of the urban risks. Why we may have to consider adapt to the change when we have this kind of maybe more emerging, we call incremental types of risk. At some point, we may also deal with multiple hazards and multiple factors, so that we may have to consider what we call the transformative types of adaptation when the risks become higher, at the same time might be quite multiple. Yeah, this is a quick kind of demonstration based on our former student from Nepal, the case of the Kathmandu Valley, to represent two types of the risk. One coming from the flood, the other one from the earthquake or the seismic type of the risk. So we try to demonstrate based on this framework from some of the factors we call natural factors, the yellow colors. At the same time, we have a number of the anthropogenic or socio-economic factors. And in fact, a lot of the interaction. So this study tried to demonstrate how we would be able to incorporate different factors, both natural and anthropogenic, and look into the different aspects of the risk from the driver, pressure, including like exposure mentioned before, to cover the state and impact. And at the end, we try to be integrated, look into integrated urban risk assessment and provide kind of the suitable response based on our understanding. This is a bit complicated, but finally, like shown on this slide, we could be able to demonstrate based on this spatial analysis, as mentioned, the two types of the hazards, the earthquake and the flood. This study also covers so that we can demonstrate two specific study area in Kathmandu Valley. Have the two specific municipalities, one big, one small, so that we can see the difference. And the map here showing this one is about the flood risk, this is about the seismic risk. Might be a bit different, but at the same time, we could also be able to overlay at least there are two types of the hazards here. But this including different factors, not only the hazards, so that this can show the integrated risk from the two main types of the factors. We could also go into specific local or municipal area, not shown on this slide, but that would also be the way to look into the multiple scale. On one side, it's a bit regional, like this valley. At the same time, we might be able to go into the local or municipal area. So we make use of this one to go into the integrated flood risk assessment, and this one also including the flood hazards. So this is a quick concept, by the way. I think all already familiar, but just to remind, we have this what we call the kind of the dynamic factor of the risk, like related to mentioned earlier. Partly the natural factors, partly human environment, and we also dealing with different type of risk hazards and environment, including the frequency, the magnitude. Sometimes we also look into the sensitivity or the vulnerabilities. So this is quite dynamic, and that's why we did a quite integrated or the system approach. At the same time, this right-hand side reminds us that we could have the different levels or option of the adaptation. Simply can like be prevention, similar to the previous slide, but we can also move into some mix of adaptation. And ultimately, if we can reach this one into the resilience, because this can cover more on the multiple factors and perhaps having a longer terms regarding the urban sustainability. In summary, which I will also offer in the end into the way forward, we need a system approach from a number of multiple dimensions, which we elaborate in some of the example. There's some kind, this is a bit global kind of information. It's good information to show how global urbanization, basically the expansion or population growth versus the flood exposure. This flood exposure mainly can compare between urban and non-urban area, like the two colors shown here. At the same time, subject to different return period. So clearly, to summarize, very important from urbanization versus some kind of the rural or non-urbanized area. At the same time, when we look at the natural factors to cope with the adaptation, so we want to see how these two types of factors need to be considered. A bit more focus of the study in sub-region of the Southeast Asia. This is mainland Southeast Asia shown on the map here. So the different land use, obviously, but with the focus of the urbanization, this represents some selected cities in Southeast Asia. The first one is in Myanmar, in Thailand, in Laos, Cambodia, and also in Vietnam. Yeah, obviously, maybe a bit different speed of the urbanization, but we can see quite common. Bangkok might not be much into the expanded area, but I think the density might be more versus other city, perhaps both density and the area expansion. And the lower part of this slide show quite clearly different and increasing flood damage or the loss. So this represents the risk. Maybe given other things, not much change. Obviously, we can talk about the climate and other, but from the urbanization, urban expansion, show quite a clear influence in terms of the flood exposure, and is a key part of the risk. In particular, For the case of Bangkok City, this represents kind of the maybe covering both multiple hazards from the upstream of the water flow with a larger basin, and within the city there could be kind of heavy rainfall, sometimes increasing or decreasing, and obviously with possible the coastal flooding from the sea level rise. So these multiple hazards included here. And the right-hand side show quite clearly, this is based on our former student study, not only just hydrological aspect, but regarding the land subsidence. I think this is also happening in many parts in the world, I think including like Mumbai or some other city in India. The graph showing the measure land sinking in terms of the both the physical types of the sea level and at the same time the relative land subsidence in addition to the groundwater pumping. So quite clearly here the two graphs showing one is what we call the absolute sea level rise. Another one, this is based on the benchmark or the monitoring in terms of the comparative sea level rise. So the subtraction of these two can represent the rate of land subsidence. Obviously very clear, I think perhaps similar to other cities. The land subsidence rate is much higher than the absolute sea level rise. So this adds into another hazards for this type of city, not only hydrological types of the hazards. The case of southern Vietnam, which we have conducted earlier study, also show not only the flood, this one covering the 3 cities in southern Vietnam in these last 3 columns, and we can see different in terms of the different climate-related hazards, including the flood among different cities. So this show we are facing multiple hazards at the same time. Not only the hazards in terms of the different vulnerabilities, and many of these become significant in terms of the red colors, like in the middle of the Ho Chi Minh City, and represent on this side. In fact, Ho Chi Minh City also face multiple types of hydrological hazards similar to maybe other delta city, from the upstream flow of the Mekong River, also from the sea level rise, and at the same time there could be some kind of changing or increasing the rainfall within the city. So it's become quite typical to deal with this integrated flood risk assessment, both city level and this study also covering the specific area. Other study, I go quickly, it's quite good record, this based on the publication in also in Southeast Asia, implementing called blue and green infrastructure. It's quite related to the nature-based solution, and this is here a number of the key measures with specific description and actual example in different countries in Southeast Asia. Not the same. Another study is quite nicely compiled a global record in terms of what's called ecological measure in urban flood risk management, quite worldwide, and show different both in Europe, Asia, and other regions. At the same time, this represent a mix of the measures from restoration, which are quite maybe green solution, engineer measure maybe a bit half or partly artificial or partly nature-based, and the hybrid measure. We see that the green and blue or some other measure become more popular, and at the same time, this graph represent quite nicely the different aspect from the design planning to the implementation and governance. That means we are not looking at just only the planning or the design or implementation, which is important. At the same time, the different aspect of governance can support or influence the performance of any of these ecological measure in the urban flood risk management. And also quite nicely based on the same study could result into this interesting framework, how the NBS nature-based solution can be integrated with flood risk management, and quite nicely covering the phase I mentioned earlier, from the design planning, implementation to the governance framework. And this represent similarly in the previous slide, from natural types of the ecosystem or the factors, and at the same time interacting with social or human factors. So I'm going to specifically for the case in river basin in Thailand, and the next case we also link into the comparative study with another basin in China. Quick background: Thailand faced this what they call the Great Flood 2011. With a summary of the cause and effect. I will not go through the detail, but obviously this is the map showing, which also used in the later slide, divided into upper basin, middle, and lower. Then Bangkok capital city is on this side, the downstream part, and it's quite important river basin from economic, from any aspect. And this the biggest record in 2011 show a lot of the lesson learned in terms of cause and effect. This map showing during a certain day in that particular year, quite large area flooded, inundated. And in fact, also this picture showing the actual damage flooded in our own AT campus during that period. Fortunately, the Bangkok metropolitan could be partly protected. This is maybe part of the kind of the anthropogenic factors, because this is on the downstream side, and people very much questioning why this one still at least partly not flooded or safe. Anyway, this lesson learned coming out and opportunity showing also in this picture, and this provide I think a quite clear confirmation that we need integrated flood risk management, and in other way that we can also enhance the urban resilience based on this great flood. So I'm going to the detail of the case based on our earlier study. It's a comparative study for one river basin in the central part of Thailand. Same as in the previous slide, this upper, middle, and lower, and the capital Bangkok is also here. In comparison with one river basin in southeastern China, a bit smaller, but there are some comparative information, and we could at the end match a total of 5 cases from case 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for some kind of a bit common in terms of the specific case between the two sub-basins. I'm going to, this is a picture showing during our study and exchange kind of program, quite comprehensive. We apply this framework. Again, this shows integrated flood risk management, utilizing the driver pressure, state, and impact, including a response, like I mentioned in the previous slide. At the same time, this framework could represent a different scale from the macro, we call the basin or the region, to the mesos, sub-region, and the local municipality we call at the micro scale. We need this interaction. At the same time, different colors and different components here show how we try to integrate different components from physical to non-physical, and in fact, different types of adaptation. One of the sub-study and represent in this slide to show how socioeconomic factor can play the role as kind of influencing the flood risk. And this is the same kind of map from upper, middle, and lower basin. Different colors here show different levels of significance among different factors from the flood frequency, flood impact, and socioeconomic types of the factors, which we could identify what happened on the upper part, some of the key factors, what happened in the middle part, and some of the key factors on the low part of the this same large river basin. In China, good that we could also focus and publish these results. The factor most influencing flood risk in this particular river basin called Jilong River Basin in southeastern China. And among different sub area, but overall showing that the very top key factors are peak discharge, financial investment, age structure of the population, so reservoir build-up area, and the wetland. We see the combination of both natural, physical, and some non-physical or socio-economic factor playing the role in this river basin in China. Yeah, this slide show two pictures. This is one from same basin in China. This is the same basin in Thailand, and luckily I also could visit this city in Germany to kind of compare very similar. I think you can see some similar kind of the knowledge or the application for the three cities. These are not really large city, but very similar that each city has what we call like this one in terms of the structural or the dike concrete plan. Even the same.
Sorry for interrupting, sir. Sorry for interrupting. Could you conclude in the next 2 minutes? We have 2 more minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
this in China also similar. So in this case, we see that a kind of maybe some less urbanized representing more on the flexible type of adaptation, similar among the three cities. At the same time, some of the very high urbanized area providing more on the structural or kind of the fixed measure. This represent different adaptation option we compile from the two river basin. Some of these are existing, some of these are the plan or in the future. So some of the specific case, this is the case in upper part of the basin in Thailand to assess some of the NBS option, including natural or bio storage and green surface as shown on this slide. So we could learn from this specific assessment how NBS, particularly on this option, play the role. In the middle part of the basin, this represent both natural and artificial wetland, and so also comparing between the two basins in China. And this kind of wetland play also quite major role in the intermediate or middle part of the river basin. And this in China also can quantify how the land use and flood exposure can be different based on the changing the land use of this particular river basin. In the lower part of Thailand, this again show role of socio-economic factors in dealing with the flood risk. And we also perhaps need to look into kind of the mix of the measure because it's complicated and very highly urbanized and maybe the most challenging part. And represented by this one, this again confirm the significance of the land use into exposure to represent the flood risk when we go into a specific study area. And this is in the suburban area of the Bangkok metropolitan. Similarly, this is a bit complicated, but also good study to compare how different small or large scale of mitigation measures. Some of these are based on the nature-based type of the approach, but including the summary that we perhaps need to consider the hybrid combination of different scale or also a different type of measure. At the same time, this study could also confirm multiple types of benefit because a single benefit might not be justified. Yeah. So this almost the last one, I end up with way forward. The first one, utilizing the system approach, which I demonstrate on this presentation. We should try to see how multiple stakeholder and user, multiple benefit, multiple hazards and measure, including multiple phases in the cycle, could play the role because we need this to be integrated. Even sometimes no need to be perfectly integrated, but I believe we need this. The second one, analyzing and understanding different factors, natural and topogenic and interaction. And the last one, I think we need more and more to look into how to measure quantitatively or qualitatively, and evaluation of the impact, interaction, synergy, co-benefit are the key including challenge for different types of solution, including the NBS. That's it. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you for the presentation, sir. It was indeed nice. Just sorry that we are running out of time and that's why we had to cut it short. Now may I call upon our next presenter, Mr. Gunter Langerberger, Senior Scientist at the Boku University. surface. He holds a PhD in civil engineering and water management, and as a habilitation professional in the field of sanitary engineering, both from the Book University. And he has been an active member of the International Water Association in various roles. He has also served as chair of the Cost Action Circular City that aimed to build an interdisciplinary platform for connecting city planners, architects, system designers, circular economists, engineers, and researchers from social and natural sciences background. So these will allow in developing systems, allowing cities to cope with future challenges, whether it is climate change, resource depletion, or biodiversity loss. Over to you.
Thanks for the kind introduction, and thanks to CDD India for having me here. It's a pleasure to come back to Bangalore after some time and to share some of the work we have done in the past years with you. So we heard now a lot about more general aspects about flood risks and mitigation measures and risk planning, and I will focus more on what we can use NBS, nature-based solutions, for with these measures. Let's try one. Yeah. Can you turn to the next slide, please? Or, let's one more try. Yes, no? Sorry for this. Then the next slide, please. Just let's do it like this. Okay, you heard already something about my background. I just wanted to mention one thing. In IWA, we also are creating at the moment a cluster for nature-based solutions. And this shall bring together the people working on treatment wetlands and on urban drainage to see it as one solution for cities in the future. So I've come more from the side working on treatment wetlands over the last 30 years almost. And so this is my background. But now please to the next slide. We know that, and we talked about that there are a lot of challenges to cities. So cities have, besides climate change, there's resource depletion and also biodiversity loss in cities, and the cities have to adopt. And it's quite clear we have existing infrastructure in our cities, and it will always be a combination, hybrid systems, and nature-based solutions cannot be the only solution. It also has to be looked into the context of the different location as we are. Next one, please. Yeah. This is maybe how we want our cities to look like in future, more green. This is not a real city. This is taken from, I looked for a green city in the internet some time ago, and then I Googled for this and found this picture. But next one, please. When we look on how we have been looking at water over the past in our cities, starting on the left side, we started to bring water to supply the people with water to the cities to supply the people. Then we making sewers to drain the water away. Then we looked more into the water cycle, including stormwater management. And nowadays we talk more about blue-green cities, and the complexity is increasing. We need more thoughts about working on. That's right. Okay, the complexity is increasing and the challenges are increasing as well. Yes, perfect. So what are nature-based solutions in general? What can we have in cities? We can have cities, we can have NBS that are adjacent to buildings, so we can make our buildings greener, basically green roofs, vertical green systems, for example. And we can also have green building sites, as we defined it, like parks and on the surface, some greeneries. There could be also green building materials, but I will not touch into this. It was mentioned that I was chairing this cost action. That's a network activity on circular cities. It's a European initiative, and What it's all about, I will show you in this video, and I ask the colleagues in the back to start the video. You have to press on the picture. And now we need the sound turned on.
Economic centres, but also as resilient and enjoyable places with nature all around us. Sounds unrealistic and too good to be true? It's closer than you think. The Cost Action Circular City connects scientists and practitioners all over the world to work together on circular cities and bundle their research and experiences. In circular cities, buildings become much more than places to work or live in. Houses no longer just consume. There is a give and take with the surrounding environment. Through nature-based solutions, they store energy and provide high-quality surface water and nutrients, collected and filtered with plant technology directly from our waste streams, monitored for safe use. For all kinds of integrated food productions, like the edible walls or vertical farming, rooftop gardens, mushrooms harvested in our cellars, up to fish breeding in aquaponics. Circular houses include deconstructible joints and incorporate natural materials like wood or straw and wool in walls and roofs. They contribute to biodiversity and create beneficial microclimates that prevent heat islands, droughts, and floods. Urban farming thrives through community and school gardens. Public spaces become lively areas where water and plants create a fresh climate, even in summer heat. And nature-based solutions absorb stormwater and bind CO2. Involving a large number of stakeholders and their interests, Cost Action's Circular Cities combines the superpower of nature-based solutions in a holistic urban web to create a multi-scale network of urban blue-green infrastructures. Benefits are not just ecological, but also economical and social. This Cost Action gathers experts all over the world with the knowledge, expertise, and tools to support you in your communication, planning, designing, and assessing of circular cities. We present sound solutions to the decision makers and implementers so that we can start building the cities of tomorrow today. Contact us now.
Okay, thanks. We can stop this now and back to here and see if it works. Yeah. It just gives you an impression on what was our idea about the circular city. Stormwater management, flood protection, flood mitigation is just one aspect of this whole story. If you go to YouTube and watch this video, you can watch it with subtitles in 30 languages. So we tried to make some measures or some materials for the wider public. So what was one of the main outcomes was this framework that we developed, and we defined circularity challenges for urban areas. That's one. I'm coming back to this in a minute. And the second one that we tried to unify and come up with a catalog, which are the nature-based solutions that we can use in cities to create circular environments. So regarding these circularity challenges, from the urban water management point of view, on the one hand, we want to restore the water cycle as a closed loop as possible. And on the other hand, what's related to water is also we can treat water and waste streams with nature-based solutions. Within a circular city, we also looked into food and biomass production. We looked into nutrient recovery, reuse, material recovery, reuse, also on energy issues and others. Regarding the framework, I mentioned that we try to make a catalog of technologies. You see them here. It's not supposed that you read them. There are some technologies there. There's some more interventions. And so what we did, we tried to use as little number of technologies here. We try to sum up all the different, because a lot of times the same technology is named differently in different parts of the world or also in different fields. So, and then we classified them into technology, into interventions, and finally we put the technologies into subcategories. For example, one you can see here on stormwater management, and for example, that's more for treatment of water. This was just to make it easier readable. When we look, for example, on the NBS that were categorized into rainwater or stormwater management, the dark dots show that they are designed for this specific purpose, and this is closing the water circle. That's rainwater management, stormwater management. And you can see, but they also can have an effect on other circularity challenges. So there's not only one purpose you can address with specific technologies. When you look also at the NBS used for river restoration and for soil and water bioengineering, you see also some that there are some technologies or some interventions that are more related to flood mitigation measures. But also you can see that there are different challenges that can be addressed with these specific measures. So we heard a lot that they are existing, and we also already heard in the previous session that what are the factors that hinders that NBS are getting wider implemented. So one thing is, especially when it comes about stormwater management, flood mitigation in cities, we have to know where to put this in our cities. We have our own infrastructure. This is just a small example. It was a former PhD student at our university, and she developed a modeling framework to identify potential sites for interventions, taking into account the settlement structure, the streets, the topology of the streets, and also the existing sewer network. Just to show you a few pictures, this is, for example, the sewer network. It's a small part of a town in close to Vienna in Lower Austria. You can see the existing sewer network. And then on the left-hand side, you see the settlement structures without going into detail which color is what. And then based on the settlement structures, it was investigated where are potential yards where you can implement specific technological measures for stormwater management. For example, infiltration basin in the middle and open conveying structures on the right side. Green means potentially feasible, red means not. You see, it looks quite different depending on the different technology, what is feasible, how much space you need for the specific technology. Second picture from here is you have the different streets on the left side, the street topology from high traffic to no or almost low traffic. And then also how the traffic structure is then influencing the implementation of different measures. This is just showing what can be done. This is the technical means, some tools that we need as planners. But what else is needed for implementation? And we heard already quite a lot of it. This list comes from an Austrian project where a network of university was working on what are different options needed to reach the SDGs in Austria. And for reaching parts of SDG 6, the implementation of blue, green, brown infrastructure was selected as one of the options. And then we defined different measures that are needed to promote this implementation. Of course, unsealing the surfaces, that's quite clear. But sometimes we don't have the regulatory requirements for this. We heard of this already before. Subsidies and other measures might be also needed. There must be incentives also for municipalities to go to local stormwater management. Utilities are nowadays used to have the gray infrastructure, they have the sewers, they know how to operate it. When they introduce local management, local stormwater management, they have more facilities to operate and maintain. So it's a different mind shift. It's also a mind shift is needed in the utilities. We include these measures in teaching at universities, but also in technical high schools, that the future engineers knows about nature-based solutions. but also, and even more important, I think, from the existing people, existing engineers, existing experts, they haven't heard about this in their lectures at school, at university. There needs to be training courses for them as well. We already heard about the multiple benefits of NBS. So this also has to be taught and included in making decisions. And also that what's also was mentioned, that people have to talk to each other. We need to include multiple actors in the planning process. We heard about different departments in the municipality have to start talking to each other. Just one example, we had a project in Vienna about the trees along the street and how to manage them and how to bring rainwater to the streets and decoupling the rainwater, the stormwater runoff in winter, because there's ice used salt used to prevent icing of the streets, so this should not go to the trees. And long story short, means is that in this project, there were 12 different municipal departments involved from the city of Vienna. So it was, for the city of Vienna, the project with the highest number of departments involved. So it's quite a complex structure. We heard about thinking in silos, and we have to bring them all together. So this was more on the Austrian perspective, but we also did a survey within the cost action, within our workshops. What might be barriers for implementing of NBS? And the top 5 are on the right side. Some people might think that the technology is too complex, which I personally don't really agree. But there's a lack of personnel in different levels to implement them, to design them, but also to operate and maintain these systems. Some of these technologies are rather new, and there might be uncertainties in their performance. And older colleagues in designing might not know that NBS is an option in this case. And there's always also a concern that mainly the operation and maintenance might be more costly than a conventional sewer system. We also looked at the incentives for larger implementation, outreach, information dissemination, awareness raising, of course, and demonstration sites. People always like to see something on the ground, especially decision makers, but I think most of people like to see something really working. Communication, collaboration. I mentioned before that different actors have to talk to each other. And of course, we have to adapt the designs to the local circumstances. Yeah, too much. One more. Regarding why the collaboration is needed, we also ask participants in the workshops in the cost action. So what do you see? What are the potentials of NBS to address circularity in cities? And then we divided this according to the field of expertise or their background. So engineers were saying their NBS are good for sustainability issues. Chemists, biotechnologists, more on resource management, and biologists more on biodiversity. But when you put all answers together, it was water management the big issue. So you see, you have to bring different disciplines together to create these multiple benefits. And to start with awareness raising from the beginning, we developed also a book for children, for school children in the cost action called Circular City, and it's also available in Hindi. So we had a lot of colleagues with different languages, and the material was translated in different languages. Come up to the end and sum up quickly. Nature-based solutions can provide a lot of ecosystem services to help to change cities in a way that they can cope with the existing challenges. Stormwater management, flood mitigation might be only one of the issues that can be tackled with this. And I think it's quite clear from also the previous speakers that with nature-based solutions, you cannot do everything. You have to include the surrounding of the city. You have to have other measures especially for these very high flood events. I think that's quite clear to all of us. The planning of nature-based solutions nowadays is mainly just for a single purpose. That's reality. But if we want to look, if we want to utilize this multifunctionality, we have to include other fields in the planning. We have to talk to each other. And basically, water is a key issue when you also implement NBS. Think about stormwater management. If you have some infiltration basin and it was very hot and dry before, there will be no infiltration in this infiltration basis. You also have to maintain this infrastructure by irrigating the nature-based solution to keep the plants alive, to keep our cities green. And just we have to look for other water sources than drinking water to do this. So it's a more, the issue becoming a little bit more complex at the end. But using drinking water for irrigation, it's not a good idea at the end. I think we also can agree on this. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gunther. That was indeed a wonderful presentation, a lot of interesting ideas. Now for the last presentation, I know we are running a little late on the coffee break, as I promised, but let us finish with this last presentation and then we can return back and take questions. I would like to invite Sri Naresh Narasimhan, the next presenter. He's co-founder of the MOD Foundation, Bangalore, and he is an architect, urbanist, and a creative entrepreneur practicing for over last 38 years. He's held leadership positions at Venkatraman Associates and has been an award-winning design consultancy in Bangalore. As a co-founder of BATF and co-founder of MOD Institute, he's collaborated with a lot of urban designers, researchers, and curators. So over to you.
Good afternoon to all of you. I come from another world. I don't think I've met many of you, but I'm an architect and an urban designer practicing in Bangalore for about 40 years. My firm is about 55 years old, started by my father, and we've been involved in multiple large projects. Many of you have been in Bangalore, have been through my buildings, but you don't realize it. Over the past 25 years, I've been working with government on a bunch of both professional and citizen-led initiatives, mostly on a pro bono basis. And many of you have seen some of those projects. Is there a lot of the room from Bangalore? Quite a few, okay. So you would have seen Church Street, you would have seen all the Tendershore roads, various other projects that I've been involved in. About 4 years back, this has been bothering me, this whole idea of having stormwater drains, or as we call it in Bangalore, the Raja Kaluve, the King Canal system, has been, how do I operate that? This? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So, has been bothering me that why is it that in spite of so much intellectual heft, so much knowledge, and as Dr. Thirupugar pointed out, we seem to know what the problem is. Why is it that nothing gets implemented in the public sphere? The theoretical knowledge is there, the case studies from various countries are there, but somehow, and one of the earlier speakers pointed out, I think Dr. Thirupugar said that corruption is not the only answer. It's also the attitude of the people of India towards keeping their external environment clean. Poorer countries than India, I have traveled to more than 80 countries in the world, and much poorer countries in India have a higher sense of public hygiene and an ownership of public space. And in India, it is truly a tragedy of the commons. We keep our houses perfect and throw the trash over the compound wall onto the street, thinking it's somebody else's problem. There is no community ownership at all of public spaces that does not belong to you. With that in mind, I said, let's go around changing this. In Church Street, we found, when we did Church Street, many of you have seen it, it's one of the best walking streets in the whole country, inclusive, accessible, etc., etc. And I was speaking to, after about 2 years after the implementation of the project, I was speaking to the people who clean the street, the Paura Karmikas, the street sweepers, and they were relaxing on the footpath at 10:30 in the morning. So I spoke to them and said, why aren't you working? He says, there's nothing to do. Nobody throws trash here anymore. Just the same reason, all of us don't throw trash in an airport. Right? We throw trash on a street, but we don't throw it. Sometimes we throw it in a railway station, but even that has come down now. Why is it that in some places automatic enforcement is there, and in some places, like the stormwater drain of most cities, the nalas or the Raja Kalves as they call them, they've become repositories of garbage, sewage, and everything that should not be thrown into it. So 4 years ago, at the height of COVID had just been declared, I think, February or March. The government of Karnataka asked me to, I've been asking them to let me do something with the stormwater drain problem of the city for the past 10 years. Suddenly they called me, the chief minister said, what can you do? So this is a typical, I could, as pointed out, this could be a stormwater drain anywhere in India. You know, high side walls, and to stop people, even higher fences, and people throw junk over that. Okay, and it's full of sewage and solid waste. All I did was, politicians, if you go around explaining flow rates, flooding levels, or what is the logic of a blue-green infrastructure, nothing they will understand. It will just go in 1 year and go, it won't even go in 1 year. It will just go above them and disappear. So all I did was showed them this picture. I said, it looks like this. I said, give me 2 years, I'll make it look like that. Fresh water, public walkways, beautiful greenery. And I also didn't tell them, but I also said I'll remove the fence completely. It looked like an impossible thing to do. Right? And we included it in the government program. I am quite happy to work with the combination of civil society, the common citizen, the professional, the government, the contractor, the designer. One of my jobs is to, in my architecture profession, is to bring all this together. I don't see why it's any different working with government. Most people hesitate to do that. Right? And this is the timeline of the project. I won't read it, but it went through all the hoops and all the obstacles that normal projects go through, including the National Green Tribunal, the local courts. It went through financial audits. It went through the pollution control board, etc., etc. Right? And I'll structure the rest of the presentation in 4 parts. I've been told to hurry up, but I hope I have about 20 minutes to talk to you all. Right? So this whole drain was flooding at some 6 points. Okay. And first we addressed that, and then the water quality, of course, the BOD was, there's no need to ask all those questions. This is completely a dead water body. There's nothing in it, no life at all in it whatsoever. 3, the top on either side of the Raja Kalve was a royal mess. Because that was the poorest area of the city, what we call the armpit of the city. So I told the city, we will make the armpit of the city into a front yard. And it has been proven right now. And finally, reclaim public space wherever there is. All these points were addressed by Dr. Tirupugar, I noticed in your presentation. This is an example of it. It actually can be done. Right? This is standard, as you said, photograph any Indian city. Rain means this is what happens. Right? Why does it happen? This is the oldest known map of Bangalore city, made in 1791. And I've enhanced it with a little color. And what you see in the center of it, we are somewhere in the northwest, but the old city, Bangalore is the largest city in the world, not next to a natural feature. There is no river, there is no sea, there's no mountain, there's no nothing. We're on top of a ridge and it slopes away on both sides. And there's no reason it should flood. And in 1791, that means these water structures are even older than that. The ancients have figured out how to create a series of overflowing lakes. You see all the tanks, there are no lakes in Bangalore. Everything has a straight line. and everything overflows into another down a gradient. And the green parts that you see are the marshes. This did a double thing. One, it provided water for the city to drink. Two, it also provided a defense mechanism because it could be attacked from any direction. By doing this, you could only come into the city in three ways. And there are watchtowers. The Kempegowda towers, if you have seen, are the watchtowers to point that out. Right? And this is so we said, all right, let's take the oldest and the most difficult drain. It's about 11, 12 kilometers in length, with about 26 kilometers of secondary drains. And that is the old city, what you saw in the map there, the shape. And it flows all the way to that famous lake in the bottom called Bellandur, which comes in the New York Times regularly because it catches fire normally. Right? Now it hasn't caught fire for 2 years now. But you see, this was the oldest drain and it had a series of tanks. All the tanks have disappeared. Holding tanks, right? So we mapped it over the years to see how the shape of it changed. Okay, and then we also got satellite imagery to find out where are all the secondaries coming and joining it. Right? And then also map the entire watershed from where that drain in the secondaries is getting the water. This flows through the center of Bangalore. That is the old part of the city. Next is the migrant area. Third is an institutional area. Fourth is one of the most upmarket localities, Koramangala. And then it flows into the drain. It flows into the lake. Right? We sat and figured out all the flooding points. I'm an architect, but I worked with the Karnataka State Natural Disaster Monitoring Authority, as well as many hydrological and geological experts. Figured out where are all the problems, ran a flow model using computer software, figured out where are all the, and it's very crazily sloped, the drain is poorly engineered. And you can see that the initial slope is extremely high and it keeps flattening out. And it floods, you can see all the points where the blue is touching the top, it's flooding. Right? And then we started monitoring it, saying what happens when average rainfall happens, what is the flood position. Okay, also detailed studies on velocities and depth of flow, including, I think you pointed out saying mark the HFL. The entire region is marked with the HFL, not just signboards, but strong signs which you can see everywhere what should be the high flood level, right? And started comparing extreme versus average using graphs, right? Also, again, looking at the capacity of the drain itself, okay? And then started looking at, we found out that actually for the designed capacity of the drain, it's actually adequate to take care of something like about close to 75, 80 mm of rainfall. What had happened was 1/3 of the drain was silted. 1/3 was full of solid waste. And the top part was full of this thing. So only 1/3 of the drain was available at capacity. When it rained, the rainwater would just mix with the sewage and overflow and mess up the whole area. Right? And we had to we started off by removing all the accumulated, it's about 45 years of silt inside this. And you can see and we found out to our horror, under all that, we thought it was a natural surface, the whole thing was concrete. And we were wondering who's gone and concreted this drain at the bottom. And then we found out why. I'll explain. And then after every rain, after every year, we started we filled up about 3-4 stone quarries with this mud. Totally. And then when it rained in September 22, when we first did it, the rest of the city looked like that and K100 looked like this. Right? And when it doesn't rain, it has now become it is called the Citizens Waterway Project. And a variety of plants which can be submerged, including cannas. I heard somebody saying cannas are not the only answer, but there are multiple species of aquatic plants. This is right in the center of the city. I urge you all to look at it opposite the bus stand on Double Road, on Kengal Hanumantaya Road. And when it rains, it does this. It submerges. Okay. And this also goes into the old city. We not only fixed the drain, but we also fixed the stuff on either side. And also brought some artists to make it look good in the non-rainy season. Normal day, it looks like this. It's one of the migrant areas of the city. When it rains, it does this. You might wonder what those funny looking cylinders in the middle of the drain are. I'll show you shortly. Right? And again, near the second half of the drain, I'll explain. And then when it rains, it does this. Right? You will also notice that solid waste has become a big part of the drain now. And this was the quality of the drain, fully encroached. The 25-meter buffer on both sides doesn't exist. Even to survey this, I had to use LiDAR and various devices. I used to use underwater drones to figure out the depth of water itself. It's impossible to make out anything. So using high technology, we figured out the alignment. It was also being used as a garbage dump. Wherever the wall, they had no way to enter the drain. So they would break the wall and that would become a garbage dump. And of course, with our Indian ingenuity, this guy is discharging, you know what, from the first floor itself, directly into the drain. Look at that. He's cantilevering into the drain, you know, this guy. And to add insult to injury, that is the government bus stand. And every day they are washing vehicles with oil residues. And my office started calling this Navrang Nala. Every day we go there, it's a different color. The 9-color Nala. Okay. So, and then we had found out that the sewage network was completely broken. Direct sewage outfalls into this. It took us a hell of a lot of work. And in Bangalore, another curious thing is all the stormwater networks are connected to the sewage. And all the sewage networks are connected to the stormwater. And so when it rains, it just goes crazy. The sewage network cannot handle it at all. So we have to actually go through every single 23 wards, 3 MLA constituencies, 2 MP constituencies, and I had to deal with almost 60 politicians. Because the ruling party is one. The guy who lost is the heir apparent. We have to keep him happy also. And also we took a big initiative with the Pollution Control Board, put up boards everywhere, brought a lot of community engagement, started telling them, don't treat this as a mori, which means drain. This is a canal, which is a resource. And if you are smart, Bangalore, after all these years, can kindly get a river. Okay, not a river, at least a stream. And we have 850 kilometers of this in the city. This is only 11 kilometers. Right? We use quickset cement. Have you seen? This is a terrific product I found. If there is anybody discharging, that cement sets in 1 minute. You just push it in there and hold it, it's gone, finished. And the house starts getting messed up, but that's their problem. They shouldn't have done it in the, you can see it there. Right? Old city, we went into the old city and relayed all the sewage networks in the old city. And also found out where all the, there are also dyeing units. You know, dyeing clothes and discharging toxic methanol yellow, industrial effluents into the drain. And in our course of our investigation, we kept finding that every morning there was a pile-up. And we found out in one area called Shantinagar, the water board, the sewage board in its great wisdom, had instead of starting from the tail end, as you pointed out, they started from the head and ended 2 meters below the trunk sewer. So I have put in an ISPS. You know, I didn't know all these words existed till 3 years ago, intermediate stage pumping station. So today, a lot of my office people, they're saying that India has brain drain, but I have become the drain brain. That's not even my field. And we also activated that 150 MLD STP, which was lying finished because there was no pipe going to it. Right? We also pulled this. That is the funny thing about India. All the data you want is available if you know where to look. But it exists in separate silos and in different data formats. It took me almost 3 months to pull the data, normatize it, and then start overlaying the sewage. This is the density of the sewage network in that area. You think there is nothing because it's underground, it's there, broken. Right? And we pulled out, started relaying parts of it which are not in good shape. And also This is the ISPS under construction. This is the last bit of the project which is going to come. And upstream, as part of the decentralization program of the Government of India, Jal Shakti or something, there is a program. I cannot understand why you would take sewage 20 kilometers outside the city in bigger and bigger pipes. Okay, and the final pipe size in my drain near Banan in Koramangala is 2.2 meter diameter. You can stand inside and you can't touch the sides. That big, huge pipes. So I made a rule saying now in Bangalore, I've proposed that a pipe diameter would exceed 600 mm underground. Either there has to be an NBS or there has to be a treatment plant. I don't care where it is. It will decentralize the whole thing. So in the center of the city, near the city market, we have built this. The old city cannot, anything can be done because it's all underground. So we collected all the sewage. A 5 MLD SBRR reactor has been set up there. And also it serves a double purpose. It rains only 60 days a year in Bangalore out of 365. The rest of the time, this is releasing 5 MLD of secondary water, almost close to tertiary quality water into the drain every day to make my river dream come true. And he was, of course, Rohini is here. We had a slum where the guy was discharging into the drain. And if he went to him, he said, I'll kill you if you come and remove the houses. So I think DWATS came to our, we caught it at the end of the slum. The DWATS is working. It catches a small slum pocket like that. And you can see in what is the change in BOD and the various other parameters. System is working very, very well. That is when our NBS system started. We are also working with an Israeli company called Ayala Aqua, which has done a lot of plants in Israel to implement the second phase of it also. Right? There's also a slaughterhouse, and where every day we get bone, blood, beaks, claws, everything thrown into the drain. Government slaughterhouse. Right? And this is the dyeing industry. This is that Navrang Nala. Today it's purple. Tomorrow it will be red or something. So the problem is not just the government, it's not just the system. I think it's all of us also, the people. If we don't own if you don't become a self-appointed custodian of your city, there is no point. If nobody else is going to do it. So this is what it looked. This is where the sewage is leaking still. The NBS system from Ayala is being implemented. The tenders have been called. Things are going on. And this is the NBS system in Israel. This was a drain with an apartment. The apartment couldn't sell anything because it was stinking. After they built the NBS, this side apartment became more expensive than the road facing one. Better view. Right? And this is what the drain looks like today. Our drain, K100 in Bangalore. Right? On the either side of the drain, it's also what is important in India is that infrastructure should not be viewed in a silo all by itself. Infrastructure is part of us. I want to change that word infrastructure to a word called infraculture. If you don't bring an infraculture into our country, not just the drain, whether it's roads or public spaces, we have to change the way that unless you bring people into infrastructure, it's not going to, infrastructure by itself will look drab, grey. We should go from a grey infrastructure to a green infrastructure. Okay. And I think again, you pointed out, sir, that we should design the city from a drainage plan point of view, not from a political point of view. There are 3 valleys in Bangalore, and you notice where my drain is, it's already straddling 3 administrative zones, which means 3 more bureaucrats for each side of the drain. That means I will deal with 6 more people. Finally, the HR count, body count in this from the government, 45 people were involved in the silly drain and nobody was doing anything about it. But everybody thought it's somebody else's problem. So we had to restructure the whole city, make people understand that the city has to be thought of in drainage valleys, right? And then what started as a BBMP project, the city corporation, finally we found that sewage is leaking, then electric high tension cables are running, so many characters. Solid waste department had to be a health department, road department. My God, it became like a, what do you call it? And then we told the government, the chief minister asked the additional chief secretary to monitor the project. Srimati Vandita Sharma, who eventually became the chief secretary. Every week, down to extreme detail. Then slowly started putting the revenue data of the city onto that same map. And this was their maintenance strategy, break the wall and take that inside. Right? And I explained to you why the sewers, first, because it was encroached, probably the worst engineering decision of all time. They put the entire sewer under the stormwater drain, in more than half the drain. It's impossible to go and maintain it. And if the level goes above that, the sewage just comes out naturally. Right? So we fixed that now to a large extent. We also fixed the roads on either side. It's become extremely safe for women to walk. Public lighting has been completely done. And we what those manholes have made them into Romeo and Juliet balconies. Every evening you will see kids hanging around there and chatting with each other. The joke in my office is this project, we know its success when Third Wave Coffee opens Third Wave Canal View or Starbucks or something. And you can see the dramatic difference. High wall, high fence. Psychologically, I removed it to 3 feet. Now you can see if people throw trash. And then people don't. The moment other people can see you, you won't do kachara things. Right? What look like this, looks like that. All the transformers are removed, made into unitized stations. And this many people we have to get together, to work together. That itself is a feat by itself. Mod Foundation is my company, my research foundation. And you will find within the BBMP, the departments are not talking to each other. That itself is an issue. So all these people have to be put together, including NGOs, RWAs, etc. Right? That is the chief secretary, the chief engineer. I don't know whether Mr. Prahlad is here in the audience. And that is the urban development ACS. Every week monitoring, pushing, talking to everybody, explaining to people, review meetings, including, and I also brought all the children of the area and told them to shame their parents if they see them throwing trash. The kids were most enthusiastic about it. We also set up a full monitoring. Bangalore has one of the most advanced flood monitoring control centers in the country. It's running fully in the city now. And what looked like, this was the condition when I got it opposite the bus stand. You can see the height of the compound wall there. That was the drain. And that is how it was being used for urination and defecation. Okay. And I already explained, there was still the great innovation that we have brought here is that we brought in a walkway, hollow walkway inside the drain. It becomes a non-motorized transport. Almost 9 kilometers you can walk from Shantinagar to Bellandur today. With no other vehicles, not even cycles allowed. You can only walk underneath. And there's no stoppage at all throughout. And you can see how we plotted it. And you're all technical experts, so I won't go into I've had a lot of experience from experienced engineers and scientists, right? And this was the cross section which we had made. This was the original conceptual idea. These were the high tension cables running through it when I started. That looks like this now. Already from 130 MLD of flowing sewage, we have reduced just to about 8. And that 8 will go in the next 6 months, once the NBS is in place. What look like this looks like that. What look like, and that looks like this. What look like this looks like this now. And what look like this is now a waiting area for the bus stand. People have started casually walking down the drain already. They've put in all the plants. You can see a little bit of sewage. You can imagine the sewage was up to the top of this. That was the level when we started. All the sewer networks have been reconnected, re-energized. And another collateral effect this has had is secondary water. And you also made another point, sir. No point, I think you made a point saying no point using drinking water for irrigation. All the lakes of Hoskote Taluk are full as of today. First time it has happened in 30 years. All from treated wastewater from this drain. That's it. And this is what it's starting to look like now. And the rest, I would just flip through the other pictures. And you can walk through now, it's beautifully lit, clean place. You can walk almost till 9 o'clock at night. And there were some slumboard quarters. They're looking very ugly. I just painted them to look like Murano in Italy or something. It's looking good. Why not? Easy to do. And you can see the increasing biodiversity. There's a little turtle. We've spotted a little turtle has come back there. And you can see the birds, butterflies. It's become suddenly like in all it's taken is 2.5 years, not more than that.
How much did it cost?
This part of the project, 175 crore plus GST. And I will fix the secondary. But the good news is, again, I want to re-emphasize the point. Unless you bring the public into public infrastructure, grey infrastructure will remain grey. The moment you bring people here, it will self-enforce. If you start walking and you see another guy throwing trash, you will go and help him. But if you are standing outside and look inside, you won't do anything. And you already see that it's being used beautifully. And the good news now is the World Bank, the aquifer in the 3 advantages has happened because of the project. The aquifer in the area has risen by 10 feet. In 1 year, the groundwater aquifer. 2, the World Bank has come and seen this and said, we have seen 20 projects like this in India, nothing has worked, only this is working. Bangalore has got a 4,000 crore loan to fix the entire city like this. And the big talks are going on right now too, with multilateral and the government to make sure this happens. And finally, thank you for indulging me. I think I took 5 minutes longer than I should. If you'd like to visit the train, if you'd like to follow me, use your phone, you know what to do. And thank you once again for indulging me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that captivating presentation. I see everyone is quite active now. So what do you suggest, sir? You want to take the questions?
We have a tea break.
Okay,
Then we have the entire panel here
okay.
and we can have the questions.
Sure, sir, we'll do that. So we'll have a short tea break. Can we assemble back in 10 minutes? If it's not a very big ask.
15 years, 15 is.
15 minutes? Okay, so 15 minutes. Thank you, everyone.
I don't know if there's something planned. Yeah, CDT has something planned with me, so maybe we go there as well. I told them, tell them. I'm Rajesh, was to work with CDT. It was a very nice person. I'm going to be in the panel. I come from outside. But I saw from your profile, you're mostly in Gujarat. I was in Gujarat and other people that's great summary of I like this causes and solutions. Very suited to the other presentation. What's a very good say. Exactly. Remember this. Huge difference. Yes, indeed.
But we can use the property tax. No, the property increase to finance this infrastructure. I mean, why the government?
No, but it's almost right. The property there has gone up 4 times.
Yeah, but the money goes in their pocket.
No, it goes into the people's pockets. There are freehold property.
It's not private property.
It's all private property. It goes into their pocket. They're very happy. The price has gone up 4 times. So they're motivated to look after that. They understand because of this, the value went up. Look after it.
Ideas that you used to develop on.
They are the poorest people of the city.
It's true. But I can tell you a story. The reach was aware of now the reach with close to them. I know, and it will change. Yeah, I know. Eventually. So we have to make the mistakes.
No, but they will pay
Not to poor, they reach.
eventually. Initially, that the price there was almost like 1/4, 1/5 of the price was. Now it's almost become equal. That's what.
Yes. Rajesh sir wanted to.
So,
All Andrews, all Andrews, that all people were wanted to take a picture with all foodies.
for the family.
Every year, sir, I get people.
I mean, that's true.
What is?
That's really fine, yeah. So we can continue as is, we'll just reduce the number of questions, because I think the.
Yeah, partly, it's mainly the university.
Well, let's see.
Yeah, yeah.
She's just.
Nice.
This only. Because he's working all day long, and trying not just to go for bicycle. No, I used to do. It's not out there. Maybe,
Probably the last. Start off with 100 crore project. But then went down to. So it showed some. He showed some example. No problem. That's good connection, sir. Yeah, talk to police. Sir.
Why on top?
Yeah, because at the bottom you cannot see.
Lighting अच्छा ऊपर.
Wait for a minute, if not, sir, 1 minute.
The fastest race of your life, please run.
Good.
Let's see, possible.
We'll do the Q&A and then we'll start the panel.
Alhamdulillah, but I'm easily findable on LinkedIn. Naresh Narasimhan anta. Huh? LinkedIn.
Welcome back. We request the panelists to come on.
Yes. Maybe first the presenters, we would just like to finish a small formality and then we'll go on to the panel discussion. Request all the presenters to come up on the stage. May I request everyone to assemble inside the hall?
Can you come up? Oh, yes. Just a minute, you can take down these invitations.
Sir, do we want to take one or two questions before we just close out?
So we can last.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? Yes.
Professor Vilas, are we audible?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Darshan, can you please check? He's connected.
So, Professor Vilas, thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. And I'm sure that you would have followed the other presentations as well. So, based on your work in China and other countries, what do you think that we should strongly take up first in our Indian cities?
Hello. Can you repeat the last part? I just could not hear clearly the last part.
No.
Professor Vilas, could you hear the question?
Could you repeat the last part? I could not hear clearly the last few words.
Last few words. So maybe yes, the mic. Just a moment, Professor Vilas.
So sorry about that. There's a problem with the microphone. So I'm on the main mic now. So thank you very much for an excellent presentation. And I'm sure that you would have followed our other speakers' presentations as well. So based on your experiences in China and other countries, and what you saw, what is the most important nature-based solution that you would recommend for our Indian cities to follow?
I think it's a bit tough question. I believe maybe a bit difficult to really pinpoint which particular option would be the best. But I think the way that we also conduct the research and try to convince going into the multiple benefits of the nature-based solution. I think that's on one point. On the other point, would be also nice if any option can address multiple risks or the hazards. I think that perhaps not really direct answer, but we need to really find some way to compare and prioritize, maybe subject to different contexts. As I mentioned, some of these may be good in a smaller scale, perhaps only the kind of the stormwater flooding. Even in China, there are some cases, but when we face some kind of river flooding or coastal flooding, there might be something a bit different. That's my response at the moment. Thank you.
And the second question is that after the 2011 floods, you had taken several measures, including an online monitoring system to predict urban flooding. So, what elements of that would you recommend for our Indian cities?
Can you repeat the last part again?
So, after the 2011 floods, you had taken a lot of measures to reduce the flooding in Thailand and Bangkok in particular. So, what measures would you recommend for our cities to reduce flooding? I think you also mentioned an online monitoring system.
Okay. I think the main experience from the great flood in Thailand 2011 was anthropogenic factors. It was quite overlooked before that. So after that, I think things become more aware and then also try to incorporate. So my main suggestion, particularly when we deal with lower part of the basin, maybe some similar other basin or even in India, whenever we see the highly influenced from anthropogenic factors. So in that case, we need to look at the measure that can address not only natural type of the hazards or a kind of like upstream types of the flooding.
So thank you so much for your excellent presentation and answering our questions. I'm sure the audience would have benefited from your presentation. I understand you have another commitment, so thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you in future. Sorry?
Yeah, I can still stay for another like 15 minutes, if I may. So if any further question, I'll be.
Yeah, I think there's a question from the audience.
Okay.
Yeah, Khun Vilas, last year, northern Thailand faced very serious flooding, including urban flooding in Chiang Mai, Nan, and other places. So Bangkok has to some extent had some precautions taken, but were similar precautions taken in Northern Thailand? If not, what are your recommendations?
Okay. I think something maybe a bit new you have mentioned. Some of those cities, basically they have quite a significant increase of the rainfall, and partly not inside the city, coming from upstream. So in that case, a bit new. One thing that they try is to have a better monitoring, so that if something happen on the upstream, thing can be kind of timely taking action. So that can be one point. On the other side, they recognize more within the city because of some infrastructure. Some of this may be informal. Recognize that this really much increase the risk of flooding, given the same amount of rainfall or the same amount of the upstream flow. So these two factors become I think maybe common in other developing cities, but it's getting very clear on this side.
Thank you so much, Professor Vilas. So given the shortage of time, what we'll do is we'll take all the questions from the audience later on and circle back to all of you and get the responses also published and share it with you all as a follow-on note, if that works. So I would like to thank all the presenters for the wonderful presentation. And on behalf of the audience and my colleagues, I would also request you all to accept these mementos as our gratitude. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I'll request my colleague Rohini Pradeep to hand it over to you. Thank you so much, Mr. Gunter. Lovely ideas, and we love the video that you played in between. Thank you so much, sir, for the captivating presentation that you made. Infraculture is something that we are all taking back today. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, sir, for the wonderful presentation. A lot of learning from your presentation too. Thank you again. You can please take your seat so that we can start off with the next panel discussion. So for the panel discussion, may I please invite all our panelists one by one. Mr. Yup, maybe you could join us on stage first. Mr. Yup is the lead water resource specialist at the World Bank. He's been working across countries like Philippines, various other South Asian region countries, Bhutan, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, etc. And his area of focus has been on review of the water irrigation, flood management, and dam safety projects. So we look forward to learning a lot from your experiences on ground. The next panelist would be Mr. PG Ganpati. Can you join us up? He's a senior advisor at CDD India, an infrastructure and sustainability professional with more than 25 years of experience. And his core areas have been on infrastructure, spanning water and sanitation, housing and real estate, urban infrastructure and sustainability. He's also been consulting various other foundations and organizations and has led a few organizations in the past. And now he comes with a lot of rich experience of being even a practitioner on ground. The next panelist I would like to invite is Shri Aman Bhaiya, a first generation learner serving as the Vice President and Head of Strategy at SBI Foundation. Mr. Aman. He's been an entrepreneur with a vision for Viksit Bharat at 2047. He has nearly 10 years of leadership experience in corporate social responsibility and financial market advisory. A founding member of the SBI Foundation, he has been instrumental in launching India's first Section 8 company in the public banking sector. And he's played a pivotal role in shaping CSR strategy, policies, and programmatic verticals, spanning education, healthcare, livelihood, disability inclusion, women's empowerment, environment, sports, innovation, and R&D, with a total outlay of more than 1,500 crores. Thank you so much for joining us. I would also like to invite, it's not around. So I think, sir, with this, I would hand it over to you, sir, to start with the panel discussion.
So we have around 50 minutes till 5:30. So what I would do is first a quick question to you. Could you share your experiences about Manila floods and what would be the learning for Indian cities from your experience in Manila?
Good afternoon. Thank you, sir. Yeah, Manila, like many other cities, our forefather thought it's a good idea to put it near the sea, around the mouth of a river. Now, Manila has other issues. To the south, there's a big lake. To the north and the west, the north and the east, you have mountains. It's about, it covers about 20 typhoons come over the Philippines every year. We call them cyclones here, and many of them touch on Manila. Now, in 2009, there was a very serious typhoon, and about 1,000 people drowned or got killed. Hundreds of thousands, millions got displaced. And that was really an eye-opener for the government that something had to be done. That's also when the World Bank got involved. Initially, we were asked to do a master plan. And I think, you said you can't do these ad hoc measures, you need to have an overall plan. So we did a very detailed master plan, a long-term plan, with about 10 major interventions for about $10 billion. And the issues, like in many cities in India, now Manila only has one river coming from the mountains, from the east, the northeast, going through the city. And about 6 million people live in that floodplain. So a lot of water, flash floods come during typhoon events. Then you have all this great infrastructure. You have waterways, drains. You have pumping stations, all old, under-designed for today's conditions. Lack of maintenance, siltation. Many of the things you've in your excellent presentation you touched upon. Now Manila is a city of 50 million people. About 3 million are informal settlers. They've come from the provinces for a better life. But where do they settle? They settle in the floodplains, they settle next to the waterways, they settle next to the drains, and that leads to a solid waste issue. Now, the last presenter said, why are people throwing it in the waterways? It is true, you shouldn't do that. But if your garbage is not collected, then what do? Well, you find the easy option, you throw it in the river or the waterway next to you. So after the master plan and after understanding all these issues, we came up with a first project, the Metro Manila Flood Management Program, $500 million investment from the World Bank. And it has three major components. It's upgrading infrastructure. It's not just the grey infrastructure, but also coming up with nature-based solution. It has a $50 million component on solid waste. It's creating awareness. It's trying to change attitudes. But to change attitudes, you also have to make it possible for the people to put the garbage in places and not in the river. So there's a lot of work on recycling also and bringing in private operators to collect the garbage. And then finally, because there's resettlement, of course, we don't call it resettlement. Typically, we call it resettlement in the World Bank, but we call it rehousing because we wanted to move these people within the city rather than outside in the city, like happens in India often, and in the Philippines before, because they will come back anyway. So this project is now well underway, and I think there are many lessons in Bangalore also. Shall I do that, sir? Shall I just continue on Indian cities? And we'll talk a bit about Bangalore because we are preparing this project, as the last speaker said. Now, Bangalore is different, and I think that was mentioned. It's on a plateau. So in Bangalore, you have to deal with the water that comes within the city. There's no, like in Manila, there's no upstream water coming in. So again, similar issues. You have rapid urbanization. You have the storm water drains. They're old, and we saw the pictures. You have many lakes that have been reclaimed. Bangalore had many lakes, as we saw on this old map, but they've been reclaimed, they've been filled up for bus stations, for real estate, there's encroachment. Now climate change is probably bringing more intense rainfall, and the system is not designed for it. Then an important point was also mentioned is this lack of coordination. During our project preparation, we became very much aware of that point. Even if in BBMP, the stormwater drain division does not talk to the lake division. So they do different developments and they're not really coordinated. Then you have the water supply sanitation company, etc. Now, let me talk a bit about nature-based solution, because out of all these issues in Bangalore, as the last speaker said, the Karnataka Water Security and Resilience Project is under preparation. We're at advanced stage. It was appraised last week. It's 3,500 crores from the World Bank. Yes, it will work on stormwater drains, but stormwater drains alone is not the answer. First of all, they are designed on historical climatic data, so they don't really take into account climate change. So 1 in 10 year return period will become a 1 in 9 year return period 10 years from now. So nature-based solution and other solutions will become part of the solution for an integrated urban flood management. So what does the project intend to do, especially with regard to BBMP? It will upgrade the drains. You need these drains. You need to get water out of the city, but it also will be linked up with the lakes, so that the lakes will be restored, and they will then be able to capture the water for use later. Now there is an issue. There is this sewage and K100 drain we saw. You have the same manholes in many of the drains in the city. They're spitting out sewage. The trunk lines in these drains are leaking. So unless the BWSSB sort out these issues, it will be difficult actually to capture that water in the lakes. So it's again an integrated issue of quality and quantity that has to be addressed, and hopefully the project can help on that. Then of course, utilize parks better. Bangalore has beautiful parks. You can create wetlands, you can create ponds, you can do aquifer recharge, etc. Green roofing and all these things, permeable pavements. We heard it all from the first presentations. Will be done also. Now it's not just nature-based solution. What you really want to do is you want to retain water in the catchments and then gradually release it either in the aquifer or in the drains afterwards. So I'm from the Netherlands, as the introduction said, and especially in Rotterdam, we have come up with lots of solutions. Use skate parks to temporarily store water. You showed that also, sir. We use garages once every 20 years to fill them up. You pump out the water, all to retain this water outside the drainage system. Now, Bangalore is a unique city. Many coastal cities, Chennai, Mumbai. We heard about Bangkok also. So you really need to keep water out of the city as much as possible during extreme rainfall events. In Manila, as part of the master plan, we're building a dam upstream of the city, so you retain water. Gradually, you release it. Part of it is used for water supply, so it's a multi-purpose dam. But the priority is flood management. There are retention basins further downstream to capture additional water from the upper catchment. I will finish with the Netherlands, because we are, of course, very proud of a nation underwater, but we have survived actually since 1953, when our last flood was. But as far as designs is concerned,
what is the current return period for Netherlands?
Yeah, so it depends. I was just going to come to that. So the seas are 10,000, and you said certain areas 100,000, because we're following a risk-based approach now. So it depends on the importance of the area that you want to protect. Now, where is our economic heart? That's in the west. That's Rotterdam, Amsterdam, The Hague. That's all the cities. So we have this room for the river concept, where actually settlements further up north, further upstream, have been removed to basically give more space for the river. Then we have this, as part of the risk-based approach, we allow that certain agricultural land gets flooded every 20 years. So the dike system is designed that if it reaches a certain level, it will spill over in agricultural land. The farmer loses one crop, and he's insured, and his house is built higher up, so he can stay there when the floods, when the inundation happens, and when the river has receded, the water will get back in the river system. So now, Room for the River works in the Netherlands, but we also spend, I think, 3-4 billion euro on that just to move people and to bring in this risk-based approach there. It's not applicable everywhere. I work in Bangladesh. It's much more difficult. Yes, you want to keep water out of the city, but poor farmers have half a hectare. There's no insurance system. If they lose their crop every 5 years, it's very hard for them to come up again. Actually, in Bangladesh, I work on the Jamuna. We have a component on insurance, parametric insurance. If water reaches a certain level, they will be paid. So at least it's sort of a social safety net. The farmers can get going again earlier than later. So besides the grey infrastructure, there are many other opportunities. I hope the project we are preparing here in Bangalore will be a good practice. We will try as much as possible for the K100 program approach, because it's an excellent approach. It's good for the flooding, but it's also good for the population. It's good for nature, biodiversity, etc. So it will serve multi-purposes. So we are looking forward to work with many on you on this program as it gets under implementation later this year, and hope for success and many learnings. Thank you, sir.
All right. My next question, or rather point for discussion, is to Sri Ganpati. He's had extensive experience with the CDT, and he's advising various organizations with his expertise. So related to urban flooding, I would like to get your take on the scope and applicability of the nature-based solutions. Which of these solutions will most benefit urban flooding, and to what extent they will be successful, and especially considering that we are having increased rainfalls in shorter duration of time. Because I remember about 15 years back, Bangalore received 70 millimeters in 1 hour at 1 a.m. in the night. And fortunately, it was night time, so only 3 falls happened. There were no major disturbances, but we are now seeing 100 millimeters happening in 1 hour in many of cities, like Jaipur. So with this in background, what is your take on the applicability of nature-based solutions for our Indian cities?
Right, sir. Thank you. Yeah, I think the worst flood in Bangalore was 2022. It surpassed the one in a 100-year event in terms of its overall pattern, not just from a 24-hour perspective, but if you were to take a 48-hour perspective, it was even worse. So your question on nature-based solutions applicability, I mean, it's something I've been in my practice trying to explore as much as possible. But to be honest, I mean, the theory is very nice on this. The SUDS framework, the Sustainable Urban Drainage Systems framework, lays it out all, and all these previous speakers have talked about a lot of things about what can be done. And I think urban flooding in a mega city like Bangalore is very unique. I mean, the kind of things which Mr. Tirupugar showed in his presentation sort of covered the entire gamut of root causes or causes and root causes, and then possible solutions to mitigate them. But talking of the applicability of nature-based solutions, I personally think many of these ideas have to be tested out in practice. And so I would single out to say that what we really need is maybe 8 or 10 NBS solution pilots to really see what is possible and what is not possible. There are some very straightforward 2 things. I won't call it nature-based solution, but 2 things that need to be done. For example, I would single out solid waste management as the significant root of root causes. If there are 3 root causes, I would call out solid waste as one of the root causes, not just a flooding problem, of a variety of problems that urban cities in India face. So if you are able to take care of the solid waste, which is nothing much to do with nature-based solution, I think we would have reduced the flooding problem by probably 50% in my assessment. I'm just throwing a number, but that's the level of complexity it adds to the problem. I would also look at the Bangalore, for example, is blessed with a legacy of a lot of lakes and ponds that have been created. So how do we integrate the water bodies in the overall management of flood? If at all we were to have a flood management master plan, then the existing water bodies, which are definite sponges, how do you manage them? Today, for example, they're all filled with wastewater or they're dry completely. Yeah.
What Naresh had presented for one of the channels for 11 kilometers.
K100, yeah.
Can it be scaled up to the entire city?
Yeah, so it's a great example that it's been done and shown. And it's lasted a couple of more monsoons for us to have studied what is possible. But so that drain still represents a primary Rajakalwe, which is 100, sort of about 25 to 30 meters wide in many places. Majority of the drains are more like 6 meters and 8 meters and 10 meters. So yes, that's a good demonstration of what can be done on a Rajakalwe. And it seems to withstand the test of time. At least for the last 2 years, we've seen that it has helped, and areas that used to previously get flooded are not getting flooded. It might have passed the problem a bit downstream, as it appears, because the year this was completed, it so happened that the year it was completed, 2022, happened to be a big rain event also. But huge areas downstream of Bellandur got flooded, or the intersection of Bellandur and another drain that joins. Some of the most expensive and elite residential areas of the city got flooded, which became very famous at that time. So in a part of the reason could be because water flowed very smoothly in these desilted and cleaned up drains. No? So although I can see in Naresh's design that a lot of barriers were put in to slow down the flow and so on, but eventually there was a significant degree of channelization, and it could have passed. But I think it's a great model to look at. But what we need is possible pilots for even smaller size drains, like the 10-meter wide drains and 6-meter wide drains, and looking at local catchments and how to design for the local catchments and so on. I think it's only with pilots we can talk about the applicability. As of now, it seems challenging. That would be my summary. Nature-based solutions seem challenging, but I'm not in favor of other solutions like create storage tanks and try to pump it and things like that, which people talk about, but that is even more challenging. So we have to crack it, and pilots are the only way to crack it.
Okay, thank you. Next, Aman, welcome to the panel. And you are representing one of the largest philanthropic foundations in India. And since you are from SBI Foundation, what is your take on, number one, convincing the affected people to take flood insurance? And how do you implement the flood insurance and enhance the environmental sustainability of the localities in which these?
I think I am not from the banking side. So,
okay. The SBI Foundation is not bank?
No, it's the CSR arm of the bank.
Okay.
So we look into similar programs that non-profits implement and support them.
Pardon my misunderstanding. Yeah. So, but in any case, based on the presentation that you have heard, how do we take it forward? Because in terms of providing philanthropy for water security and environmental sustainability, how would you?
Yeah. So one thing what we have done in the past, somewhere around 2017, when climate change was not the buzzword in the philanthropic scene, so we had set up a fund called Green Fund from the CSR side. So basically that was about spreading awareness with our customers. We have close to 500 million, 50 crore customers, 1 in 3 Indian bank with us. So this fund is basically where any shopper which shops online using their credit card, they earn reward points. And usually those reward points, very few of the people in the room would know what is their reward point balance, and they would expire. So one of the options we came up with, these reward points can be donated for climate change. And some of the options were around afforestation, waste management, and other things. So based on the success, close to 2 to 3 CR rupees were raised in a period of 1 to 2 years. So that kind of gave some confidence at the top level, at our board level, that okay, climate change can be one of the focus areas of our Section 8 company, which is the foundation. So that's how we set up a whole vertical on environment and sustainability called Conserve, which basically has 4 intervention areas, which is restoration, waste management, and wildlife conservation, as well as promoting use of renewable energy. Now, waste management, like what he mentioned, was one of the problems that we identified. Again, as part of our efforts, we promote collaborations within, the sector itself. So we became part of one of the coalitions called India 2022 coalition, which is basically where some of the top CEOs of our country, like from the Birla Group, SBI, Tata, HUL, are part of this coalition. And as a group, the working group posed a question: what are some of the top areas that you would like to solve through philanthropy or corporate, social responsibility? So waste management was identified, and so far, like in the last 5 years, we have reached 15 cities, cracked, you can say, in a way, end-to-end dry waste management in Mumbai. The center that we have set up is now, broken even, and the center is running on its own revenues. So now we are planning to scale it to different cities. And 2 years back, we partnered with CDD, taking the waste management model forward to how to create model sanitation towns. So we have selected 3 towns in Karnataka, where our partner CDD is working with the urban local bodies in helping them plan, implement, as well as monitor nature-based solutions and hybrids. So based on the results, because how we function is we want to kind of show some impact on ground, because the money that we are using is often, used to fund very simple traditional projects, like you can call it mobile medical units or hospital infrastructure, or tree plantation is also one of the very easy to fund initiatives. So when we launch some program which is highly technical, we want to do a pilot, and based on the pilot and the learnings from there, we like to scale it. So maybe going forward, the programs that we implement in the waste management area, which are now covering 15 plus cities, we would like to partner with the urban local bodies on how to help them plan their nature-based solutions more effectively, because usually we have seen either they are short-staffed, like the urban local bodies, government has the right intention to implement all the the programs that we were discussing during the day, but either they are short-staffed or they don't have the capabilities to implement it in a given time frame. So I think we should promote public-private partnership, and most importantly, one of the speakers of this session mentioned how people are required if you keep public out of the public infrastructure. So even in the triple Ps that we mentioned, a public-private partnership, the public should mean not just the government or government representatives, but it should also mean the people. So I think based on our learnings from Green Fund, where close to 1 crore of Indians have donated their reward points to us, I think we are rightly positioned as a country to not just provide solutions to our problems, but also to the global south or entire globe as well. Because given what kind of leadership we have, what kind of civil society ecosystem we have, I think most vibrant civil society ecosystem is in India, and most of the innovators are from India globally as well. So I think all these 3 factors position as one of the countries that can provide solutions.
Talking about India, it is forecast that our population, urban population, will cross 650 million by 2000. So in view of these projections, what are the major challenges that you will face?
I think we are at a tipping point in terms of population, because we work in all of the areas, right, from livelihood, sports, education. So we are facing multiple issues, not just from the topic of this conference. Even if we talk about other issues, on the other side, we'll have negative impact on agriculture. If all the population is moving to urban towns, like you projected, that would be roughly 40 to 50% of the population. And already, if you see major cities, we are on the brink of running out of groundwater. We are seeing some of the highest, you can say, property rates or rental rates in Bangalore or Mumbai. There is one area in Mumbai, I'm sure a lot of people have been to Mumbai, it's called Bandra. So usually we kind of, tease people who are from Bandra, because even in the local area, trains, the announcement would be in an accent, Bandra, next station is Bandra. But apart from that accent, when you cross Bandra, there will be a peculiar smell. So that's the Meethi River going to the ocean. And that smell is unbearable. So you can imagine at the current rate itself, or at the current population numbers itself, a city like Mumbai, which is supposed to be the financial capital or supposed to be the visiting card of India when we, go to global events, is facing or crippling in terms of infrastructure. There is drinking water shortage. If you come out of the high-rise buildings or go to middle-class areas or slums, there is a drinking water shortage. If you look at wetlands or water bodies, there is rapid encroachment. Slums are expanding at a pace never seen before. There will be, I think, very few urban forest or urban corridors, green corridors are present right now. So at the projection, I don't think there would be any urban spaces. Maybe it would be reduced to an extent.
What about the other cities? I mean,
Other cities will have the same
We had designated 100 smart cities. So what is your viewpoint on the increased population for those cities? In
I
terms
think
of
they
water?
will also face the same issues unless we act now, because right now I can say we are at a tipping point where there is some kind of awareness at all levels.
So I will ask this question to Thiru. So he says we should act now. So what do you think we should be our top priority?
Many things. With regard to the cities, I think we should stop expanding our cities. We should start developing satellite cities, compact transit-oriented cities. Not that everything should move into the existing city. And because of that, only slum population is increasing. We don't do a capacity assessment of our cities. How much capacity the city has and will it hold additional population, additional construction? That we are not doing. I think we should do that. We should understand there is a limit to growth.
Thank you, Thiru. So you have heard the views of all the speakers and the panelists. I would now like to throw the questions to the floor. So feel free to ask questions to the audience.
Any questions from the audience?
If not, I'll ask a question to the audience. It takes the mic around. What is the topmost single nature-based solution that you think should be taken first amongst all the nature-based solutions mentioned today?
This is Mukund Babel from AIT. Probably one of the, if you would like to call rainwater harvesting, would be less of a controversial. Although there will be a challenge, but that would be relatively straightforward, relatively.
Any other comments?
I would have to ask to answer this question for which purpose? Then the different NBS, but anyway, but
our session is on reducing floods.
yeah, but still there are different purposes and for this. But I think we heard a very nice saying from the last presenter showing the case study, and this is one of my take-home messages from here. He mentioned that as long as you don't bring the people into the infrastructure, it will stay grey infrastructure. And with people bringing people in, you solve the issue of littering, you solve the issue of operational maintenance, because people are aware of what is there, and I think it's not a technical issue, it's not a single NBS, it's just the approach that we have to change to implement NBS.
Chair.
At the back, yeah.
I know this is a conference about NBS, but I just wanted to emphasize one point which I missed out during my talk, which is 50% of the problem is infrastructure and engineering design. 50% of the problem is social design. If you do not design, and I don't believe that Indians are necessarily dirty by nature or anything other. As I said, people behave differently when they are confronted with different situations. As I said, nobody goes to an airport and throws trash in the airport. But it's a public building, it's a public space. Why do you behave differently? I believe it has to do with the quality of what you do. If you execute something like fit and forget mentality, it will get destroyed in no time. Look at all our flyovers, look at all our metro stations. When it is, I don't want to offend anybody, but if you look at it only from an engineering
commission or would it be disaster management? Who will take the leadership in the government sector?
The first question is, why are we not implementing things properly? There are two reasons. One is error of ignorance and the other is error of intention. It may be error of ignorance. They do not know, they don't have the capacity. The other is intention. I don't want to elaborate on what is error of intention, all of you know. The second question is, as far as who will take ownership of managing disasters. Traditionally, we have been focusing on response. And all over the world, everybody was focusing on response. The current 40, 50 years only, we are talking about mitigation, prevention. As far as mitigation and prevention to happen, it should be mainstreamed as part of the development process. Giving it to any special purpose vehicle, whether it is Niti Aayog, whether it is NDMA, no, it will only lead to shunning of responsibility for the respective ministry. Because disaster management is a multidisciplinary subject and every ministry, every department is involved in it. As a short-term measure, NDMA can take responsibility because it has been specially created for managing disasters in the country. But the real success of NDMA should, it should be that disaster management should be mainstream as part of everyday business of all other ministries and departments. And after 15, 20, 25 years, NDMA should cease to exist. Then only real disaster management can take place. Now the tendency is there is a special purpose vehicle, there is an extraordinary body to look after this. So send it to NDMA. We will go on creating risk. It is a responsibility of that body to mitigate risk. That is the tendency which is happening. So this should be understood.
Can I also add to that, sir? She said, I'll pick from where he said, I think I'll address the more ignorance aspect. I think the intention and various other things is a more complex subject to talk about. And we all know of the institutional silos and not one not talking to the other. And you're talking, I mean, one way to, I think there's a significant component when you talk of nature-based solutions on solving the flooding problem using more natural, simpler, low maintenance, low cost ways of doing things. There is an ignorance of knowledge also, I think. And when I say ignorance of knowledge, this kind of theoretical knowledge or presentations and pictures and images of what has been done in the West, all that exist. But none of our government engineers, because this whole problem solving is still very much in the public domain, in the government domain. And the engineers who are tasked with this problem, and often even the bureaucrats who are tasked with this problem, are working on very difficult circumstances, tight time frames. Plus, there is this lack of knowledge, and very often these sort of things are seen as good to see, but not applicable for India, or they just don't know how to translate that in practice. And what they're trained for is what Naresh was talking about, the engineering way of doing things, which is what has been hammered over the last 2-3 decades, which also to a certain degree was copied from the West, good engineering. And that comes naturally to them. They have been trained over many years on how to design it, how to procure those services, how to get it built, and then to change that and even make them imagine how things are to be executed. There is an ignorance aspect there, and they don't want to touch it because they know when they see it, they know when they see the pictures, they know it's complex. I don't think, I mean, they just don't get motivated to get into an execution. Or sometimes there's even disbelief that these sort of things can be done in India and so on. Which is why I go back to my point about pilots. And in order to fund those pilots, I think Naresh, I think, was fortunate to have 175 crore backing that idea. And I know it might have taken a lot of time for him to go and sell that idea, or whether somebody in the government picked it up and sold the idea to him. I don't know which way it happened, but that's very, very rare. The government puts 100 to 175 crore behind an idea like this. Even if they put 5 to 10 crores is a big achievement. But what I think can happen is foundations like SBI or reasonably large CSR can support the imagination, design, planning of a real life demonstration pilot, and maybe even chip in certain amount of funds. And if only government can chip in balanced funds for the execution part, I think CSR can play a huge role in creating visual imagery of what, and in real life, what can be done in different circumstances and different contexts. That when engineers see, because for them, when they see it in their own city and they see it happening in front of their eyes, and if we can take them through how it was built and how it was constructed and how it's functioning, and to show them that it's actually functioning well. At least 50% of the engineers where the problem of intention is not an issue, they really have good intention and want to do it. The ignorance problem at least gets addressed significantly. And I think then some degree of scaling up can happen. One example is where I go back to the tender show roads. You built a few of them and showed now the engineers want to do it themselves. The same way, I hope this K100 kind of project scales up because it is there for people to see. And BBMP and BWSP were very active participants in the execution of it. It's just I'm hoping because they all know how it was done, they will pick up more stretches and do it. And in this old World Bank project, if wherever possible, more of the K100 kind of design can be done with a good mix of nature-based solution and conventional drains, I think that would be great because there is a 11-kilometer pilot stretch to see, not 100 meters or 200 meters, 11-kilometer pilot stretch. So I think that's one way to help the execution problem, in my view.
I have a short. I got a short question. I mean, having the plans, it's fantastic. Having some pilots, even better. But in order especially to combat the flood issue, we need at scale, we need area. And if you have the nice plans, how strong is your government to enforce? I mean, the private sector, the developer grabbing any land he can take, they're encroaching the wetlands, they're taking over parks, they whatever use the means to develop certain things, and you have your nice plans sitting in the shelf. So how strong is actually your government to enforce your plans?
Would any of the speakers panelists like to take this question? And if I may be allowed, I just have one small point to add up to these points that would then public-private partnership be one way to even explore this, given the size, given the complexity, given the amount of investment required, different stakeholders required, could that also be an option? Maybe all of you can share your thoughts. Thank you.
I can. Anybody wants to start?
It's a complex issue. That's my answer.
No, so to be honest, I don't think our governments are ready to take it up at scale. We need climate change to go to higher levels of crisis for people to wake up. So every time a 100-year return period is beaten in 5 years and 10 years, you will have a little bit of awakening and a closer look at the problem. And it's beginning to happen. We are now seeing that in the last 10 years itself, as a professional, what I've observed is the level of focus on this problem of stormwater management, as they call it, and flood management is significantly higher. And I think at the level of bureaucracy as well as engineers, there is a better recognition of this issue. But at a city scale, bringing all the policy laws and enforcing them is at least many decades away, still in my opinion. So I am therefore placing my bets a little more on pilots so that when the time comes, there are examples to ready to adapt.
Can I say something?
One last.
I just one short comment to what PG said. One minor correction, 50% of this drain is less than 8 meters wide. Okay, so, and this is the pilot. I don't want 8 more pilots. Okay, clearly now we have to go into execution mode. We know it works, we know how much it costs. We can endlessly do pilots for the rest of our life. And to answer the gentleman's question about how to make it continuous, is my point, which I am trying to tell the government now, is enough of defining PPP. PPP is defined as public-private partnership in everybody's mind. What I have done in this case is made it a private-public partnership. Just the transposition of the two words. I mean, literally, my foundation has spent about 40 lakhs on this project, and only part of that has been funded by some well-meaning individuals. So unless, and today private enterprise in Bangalore has $56 billionaires, and they walk amongst us. There'll be 2 or 3 hiding in this room also. You know, there are $56 billionaires. in the city, and some of them, and the net worth of the city's private wealth has crossed about $1.6 trillion. Now, if Bangalore, the reason I do it for this city gave me everything in my life. This is my way of giving it back. I think a guilty conscience with these 56 billionaires and each of them contributing 1,000 crore each, right, is 56,000 crore of funding. Right, and it's nothing much, it won't even affect them. And if we can use that and then leverage government, so just change the words around, call it a private-public partnership and bring in a management. All these guys come from the top echelons of industry. They all know how to run mega multi-million-dollar corporations, multinationals all over the world. What's a little drainage problem? We can send people to the moon, but we can't do rocket science on our trains. I find this extraordinarily, I find your point of view a bit pessimistic, to say the least. I go to sleep every night a pessimist, but I wake up every morning as an optimist. And that's the only way this society will change.
We have 4 more minutes. One last question and that's.
Hi, I'm Smita. I'm from Rambol India Private Limited. I have a question to Naresh sir. As we know, like Bangalore is a city of lakes, and if we nowadays we are hardly finding the kind of city lakes here. And what are, as a BBMP engineer, what are the precautions you guys are taking to prevent or restoration of those lakes? And also another question of mine is as Manyata Tech Park is also built on a lake only. Manyata, sir.
I think it is being Bangalore specific. Let us focus on the national issues. If Bangalore specific, you can catch him after a cup of tea. Okay.
Okay.
Let us look at the national frame.
One last question here, sir.
National framework.
One last question here. Second last.
Thank you, sir. Just one comment. Perhaps someone was asking about an example of how regulations can play a role. I think it was Andreas. I have 2 examples. One in Maharashtra where they have something called floodlines. So 1 in 25 years, they don't allow anything between the river edge and the 1 in 25-year line, no development zone. So that is something which they absolutely are now taking up in full scale. And another thing is from Chennai, I would like to highlight. One of the main reservoir, Pural Lake, is a lifeline of Chennai for the water security. And that catchment, it's also called Red Hills. And Red Hills catchment has been designated in the master plan that a restricted development has to be allowed. And it has been magnificent, it's a significantly regulated in a way that no more high rises, no more real estate developers have come into that space. So as far as regulations is concerned, there are certain examples. I've given you 2 opposite cities, the western city and the eastern thing. So I think there are examples, but more needs to also emerge. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
One last question. Yeah, now.
Last.
My question is to the whole panel and the speakers. So my question is, most of the projects that we are talking about right now are urban projects, which are addressing only million-plus cities, the drain project, public space making, or riverfront rejuvenation, etc., etc. I want to understand is how applicable or effective or even feasible are these projects in small and medium towns where probably the capital cost that goes into these kind of projects is the annual budget for those cities. And how is maybe the development banks or the CSR funds planning to support these kind of cities?
I think development funds would be a difficult source of funding. CSR or catalytic finance, like someone was mentioning earlier, can come in small towns and support them, because as a strategy or as a priority area, most of the corporates are spread across the country. So someone who gives priority to the area of operation, they can support, smaller local bodies whose budget is very less, and maybe some of the learnings. And this can be also seen as a situation which is more advantageous to some of the strategies that you want to implement at a smaller level. And the learnings can then be kind of, implemented at a much larger urban local body, like say Mumbai or Bangalore, which has a budget of, few $1 billion at the municipal corporation. So there, some kind of a innovation or some kind of a new model would be getting buy-in so quickly. And these days we have seen, especially in CSR projects, the smaller towns and cities, not just from an environment perspective, but in any project, whether it's an education project or livelihood project, the smaller towns and cities are coming forward and they are more dynamic compared to, bigger towns. And there, even from a creativity perspective, the civil society organizations are getting the right support from the government decision making.
In addition to CSR funds, state governments, the solutions which I presented there, presentation, they're all applicable to small towns, not only for this. As far as funds are concerned, whenever there is a disaster, the disaster loss and reconstruction is borne by the state government. It's not the local self-governments. They are not capable of bearing that expenditure. So the state government should support and supplement funds for undertaking the activities in small and medium. In addition to that, 15th Finance Commission earmarked 20% of the money allotted for disaster management, for disaster risk mitigation. It's called disaster risk mitigation. 20% the overall outlay. It was 1,66,000 crores for 5 years, and out of which 20% is earmarked for disaster risk mitigation. The fund is divided into two components. One is National Disaster Risk Mitigation Fund, and other is State Disaster Risk Mitigation Fund. That fund comes directly to the state government. From that fund out, such projects can be. There is a provision.
Thank you, Thiru. I would thank all the speakers, all the panelists, and the audience, of course, for their active participation. Most of the things have been said. I will just give my viewpoint of the story. One point which was mentioned was about the knowledge. How many are aware that the NDMA urban flood guidelines, how many of you have actually seen it? The NDMA urban flooding guidelines have been on the NDMA website since 2010. And many of the nature-based solutions are actually mentioned in that section-wise. And in 2019, the Ministry of Urban Development, CPHO, has brought out a dedicated stormwater management manual, clearly specifying the steps, the engineering steps to be implemented for sizing the drains and also the nature reserve. So both these are available on the internet, on the respective websites. And of course, there are endless manuals and codes brought out by various international agencies and the respective cities. Singapore has its own drainage manual. New York City has its own drainage manual. USA has a different manual. So there's a lot of information available. And thanks to the internet, one can immediately download a PDF of the entire document, 100 pages, 200 pages. But it requires a lot of effort going through those and synthesizing them and implementing them. So the knowledge question is answered for you. So coming back to my summary, there's a lots of points. There is no single solution. One or more solutions have to be tried together to address a particular problem. The main thing is for storm drainage systems, we have to analyze the unit, the catchment as a unit, not the zones, political zones, but plan taking the hydrologic catchment as unit. Then involve the people, involve the philanthropists, and decongest the cities. We are attracting more people to the cities by building more and more infrastructure instead of building infrastructure in the satellite towns. So that is my summary of what has been the takeaway for this session today. Would you like to add about tomorrow?
Sure, sir. Thank you so much for the wrap up, and thank you all once again for engaging very deeply with all the panelists and speakers. I'm hoping that both the sessions of the day were really very useful for everyone, and we have a lot more action planned out tomorrow in terms of learning and experience sharing and knowledge sharing. So I think that concludes the session. But before that, I would like to request my colleagues to hand over the mementos to all the panelists. Thank you so much. And also, we would like to have a group photo with all the other speakers also of the session. So you all can join us on this. Thank you, Ms. Hammond, for all the ideas that you shared. Great to know about the work that's happening on the ground. Thank you, PG. As always, a pleasure to listen to you. Thank you so much, Ms. Liu, for coming over. I'm sure we have a lot of lessons to take from your experiences in other countries. Thank you so much, sir, for moderating the session. Thanks again for your time, and may I invite Mr. Andreas. Mr. Narasimhan. A group photo, please. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And I would also like to announce that there's high tea being served outside. So please help yourself. And tomorrow we start at 9:30 sharp, 9:30 a.m. sharp. So please be here on time. Thank you again. They will go I think it's left.